third thing I think is definitely communication, and the leader is super important.
Are there any really big challenges or any mistakes that you made that stand out to you that you can talk through to help others navigate those challenges or maybe help avoid some of those mistakes?
Switching from IC to a management role can be very challenging. I say, even myself, I step in the management role, I switch back, and then I switch to management role. Fortunately, I stay there now.
You have to view it as a completely different career path.
Right. I think if I could do it again, I would definitely be more persistent.
How did you start to learn about blockchain in the first place?
The growth mindset, I think, is super important.
So what notable things have you learned from the businesses that you've worked in that have helped you achieve the position that you're in now?
I don't need to be able to write code for it anymore, but I need to know how it works.
Hello and welcome to Behind the Blockchain. Today I'm joined by Dan Feng, Senior Director of Engineering at Circle. Dan, welcome to the show. Thanks for joining me. How are you?
Good. Nice to meet you, Jen. I'm good. How about you?
Yeah, I'm great, thank you. I'm great. So Dan, for people who don't know who you are, could you introduce yourself, please?
Yeah, happy to. I came to the US back in 2000 for school. After I got my master's degree at the University of Colorado, I worked for a software company. Since then, I have worked a variety of companies, big ones like Google, Amazon, small ones like Pinterest. When I joined, they have around like 100 people. Now I'm working for a startup called Circle. And I started as a software engineer and worked like that for around 10 years. Later transitioned to a management role. Today I'm a Senior Director of Engineering at the Circle.
Great. And you've obviously worked at some very reputable businesses that you just named there. Could you talk us through what got you into technology in the first place? Why did you take an interest?
Yeah, definitely. So in fact, the computer is something new when I just grew up, right? And then time, like most of the Chinese families, they didn't have computers at home. Luckily for our school, we have a room full of computers, but that was only open for the older students. So one day, then in fact, they left the door open. I slipped in. I played there just by myself for hours, right? Just naturally, I started to say, yeah, this is something I really want to do, and become very passionate about it. There's no just a special reason triggered. Just naturally, I started interested and want to solve those problems.
That's great. I like that. Yeah, sneaking into the computer room to have a play around with something that you shouldn't. That's good. I like it. And then I know you gave us a quick snapshot, but could you talk us through your career journey so far? So you started as a software engineer, and then how did you progress from there?
Yeah, definitely. Like I started as a software engineer, worked for a company called Tyler Technologies, and what they do, in fact, they produce the softwares for the local governments, like the recording office, appraiser, or censor. And later, I got a chance to work for Amazon, and I work as an early stage of a Kindle, but I'm not on the device side. I'm on the service side. So there I learned quite a bit. That's the first time I really learned how to develop a service, serve like millions of people. And I worked there. Like I said, I started as a software engineer and then later I transitioned to a team lead. And like I started to do the project management, to do part of the people management, but of course I'm not right official like performance review or those kind of things. And later transitioned to a engineer manager there. Uh, Unfortunately, I didn't like it. I was really struggling there, and I just, that's in fact the reason I quit. So later I joined Pinterest. I joined Pinterest and software engineer, right, working for the infrastructure team. And just since I have experience with project management and work with people, and my manager came talk to me and say, hey, are you interested in just transition to a management role? And then time I just push back, so no, I really enjoy what I'm doing, right? Handle really hard problems, like very exciting and fun to do that. But half a year later, he came ask me to say, hey, can you think about it again, right, to become a manager? Because The challenging thing for startup, especially as Pinterest, maybe for all startup, is say like when you want to hire a manager, especially from outside, it's super risky. Because the engineer manager is expected to be both a technical lead and also a team owner, right? That means like if you hire somebody from outside, they need to ramp up on the technical side first, and also they need to figure out the management team. The challenge can be really big, and also like they may be a culture fit problem, those things. So growing from internally is always preferred. So I say, okay, I know he was struggling because his team is growing, right? And then uh, so I say, okay, I will stop stand forward. I will do it. So I become manager, manage your core services team. Later, I start also managing the medium platform. And then so the team is growing back to 2016, and Pinterest have like already over like 1,000 employees, and things change quite a bit. And then time the culture was different from when I joined. So and also things become slower. I think at a certain point, Pinterest grows and plateaued, and so there's some reorg changes, and then the time I think, oh, maybe this is not. And my manager left. That's probably the worst part. So I never changed my team. Always stayed in the team since day one. I joined Pinterest. I said, okay, that's probably a good time to join a different company. So I joined Google and for their cloud computing and just and the engineer manager there. And then Google, I work for cloud computing and later for the Android Auto team. The beginning of last year, that's when I joined Circle, and I have quite a bit like Pinterest alumni and Circle. So I before even I joined, I got to know about the company internally. So I think this is definitely something I want to do, and hopefully I can devote my next 10 years to this domain.
That's brilliant. So,
Mm.
what notable things have you learned from the businesses that you've worked in that have helped you achieve the position that you're in now? Is there anything that springs to mind?
Yeah, definitely. First of all, I think I have learned quite a bit from every place I worked, and also I'm really grateful for the opportunities I've been offered so far. Right. So there's a couple things definitely standing out. First is definitely Amazon. Amazon is a customer centric company. For me, it has really changed how I think a business should work. And Amazon, you will hear people consistently talking about customer experience. You certainly hear people talk about the cost, the profit. I guess somebody need to figure it out. Otherwise, the business won't work. But most people, they don't worry about it. They're purely laser focused on customer experience. Because when you have a customer good experience, other things just follow through. So this is really have a big impact for me. It's like mind shifting. I say, okay, yeah, this is I think in the future, if I work a company, I will make sure they are customer centric one. They really focus on how to have a good user experience, do whatever they can. Um, Google is definitely is a very different well kind of companies. It's a great company, and Google is more like engineer driven, right? And so you can meet a lot of top tenants with different characteristics. Some were easier to work with, some were be harder to work with. Especially as a engineer manager, that means I have a lot of opportunities. Just really learn how to work with different kinds of people, right? How to more convince people to do things instead to ask them to do things by authority. In fact, then when works and well at Google, you really need to convince people, get the engineers on board. So I really help. I think at Google it's really helped to my management and leadership skills. I really need communication wise, how to organize cross-functional project, how to convince people on board, help them keep moving forward. And the Pinterest, in fact, Pinterest for the startup is very.
So, Dan, just on that,
Mhm.
do you have any advice for people who maybe at the start of their journey who are looking to understand how can I influence my team? How can I influence people to get them on board? Do you have any advice that comes to mind that you'd just be able to elaborate on that quickly?
Yeah, definitely, right. I think no matter whether you are a manager or just an engineer, right, and better like influence people instead of say, hey, I'm ranking higher than you. That doesn't quite work in most of the companies now. I think influence people first. You need to start with listening, right? Really listen actively and understand what people are saying, right? For example, you propose something and people say no, I don't like the idea, and instead say argue, say, oh, I think this is the right idea. You really say, okay, which part you don't like, why you don't like, right? Try to educate me. I will take this attitude. I can be wrong. I will tell them I have been wrong quite often, so I want to learn from them too, right? Really sit down and listen to what they are saying. So the end goal is not to try to achieve my what I want to do initially is really deliver the final results, right? Maybe the way I do it, not the best one. They maybe have a better way. Or they will say, no, even the result you're trying to deliver is not the most optimal one. This is a different way, right? So make sure you really understand the people and to say what they're saying. And then in give your answer to them too. Like make sure they understand you too, right? Give them full text. Sometimes that should work for most of the time, right? And unfortunately, some cases it's just on the work. People just stay where they want. Especially, for example, right? I'm leading the infrastructure team here. Like there's quite a bit of technology gaps. When you talk to people, say, should we build this? Should we build that? And some leaders or engineers say, no, we don't need to build it, right? There's all kinds of reasons. They may have never used it. They cannot understand why you some everything works fine from their perspective, but it's totally fine, right? So that means we need to talk to more different partners. Somebody may share the same opinion with you. For those cases, you will say, okay, for people do agree with you, how you can build things with them, not use case with them day one, right? You just have to, cases will be different, but I think listening and really figure out how to push your focus on the final result, how to get there.
Great, that's good advice. Thank you. Sorry, I cut you off. You were about to talk about what you might have learnt from Pinterest.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Yeah, so for Pinterest, right? Pinterest is a startup, although it was a super hot startup at that time. But working for Pinterest is very different from working for like a well-established company like Amazon, Google, because well, for Amazon and Google, personally, I only worry about whether the company will succeed or they were doing well. They are doing well. Let's take it for granted. Let me put that way, right? Although they definitely, I think leaders need to figure out how to make more progress. But for my at my level, I will just take it from they are working great. Uh, Startup is not the case, right? Startup they can be hard, they're doing super well, and they may have trouble, and they will have trouble. Most startups will struggle at a certain point. So, and then the point is that means each employee, in fact, we need to focus on say, okay, how to make the company succeed, right? And it's not about yourself. The thing is, it's because no matter how successful you are in a startup, if it doesn't work for the startup, you get nothing out. And even if you yourself, let's say, don't make any progress and then company, but the company succeed, you succeed too, right? So it's more important to make sure makes the company succeed, right? And also, at startup, you do need to worry about like how much money you still have, how the growth, those things you have to worry about, even as a normal employee, right? So that means like when you work with people, their mindset is different. People always talking about how we can do something better, how we can improve this one, who should we talk to. Just the environment is very, very different. And the big companies, people only get their own stuff done properly, right? That's is already pretty good. But and the startups, you have to think about bigger. Say, okay, how we can help customers. Even this one is not related to me. Who should I talk to make it happen? Right. So that one is really easy to build a bond with other people. So I have made quite a bit of like lifelong friends there. Even today, I contact them from time to time, get some like suggestion from them. That is also one of the biggest reasons I joined the circle because I have quite a bit of friends here.
Great. And then even at your level, it's great to see that you're still leaning on other people to get advice and to learn from them. It's great to see, to always
Yeah.
and important as well, to always have that mindset of continuous learning and everything. Really, it's great.
Mhm. Yeah.
So, what does a day in the life of the senior director of engineering at Circle actually look like?
Yeah, I think every day can be different. I do have a habit just spend a couple minutes writing down what I will do next day, right? So I can start slightly early. Uh, so there's a couple domains usually I will focus on, and so one is about my team. Like I need to think about how is my team doing, right? And do they need any help? And is there any performance issue? Or anybody need to make more progress with their career paths, and what opportunity I should have to give the team as efficient. This is one thing I need to really think about every day, even just keep my eye on. Another thing is definitely critical projects. I want to be able to know all the projects under in my team, but I make sure like I really laser focus on our P0 project. We only have a P0 project like for each quarter, so I make sure I understand their standards and to say whether there's anything I can stamp in and help get them unblocked, right? More like enabling sites. Besides my team, and I also need to proactively think about to say, okay, um, how is my manager and our CTO doing, right? And what keeps them awake during nights? Is there anything I can do to help them, right? So my goal is help them. Their goal is help the company. That's why the whole company move to the same direction, right? That's what we want to achieve. Besides that, well, I also think about how is my sister teams are doing, and is there any technical expansion? I'm in charge of the infrastructure team. Right? We build components used by other teams. So I need to think about how they are doing. What's their pain point, right? Is there anything inefficient for them? What I can do, right? So like I said, like when we started the initiative, I really need to identify, say, who is stakeholder I need to, and get them on board and get those big projects rolling. And then later we can put the resource on then those projects and make it happen. Besides all these things, I do spend like 1 or 2 hours learning. I learn random stuff. Like I, for the past year, I definitely have spent more time learning blockchain, Web3. Just have to keep doing it daily.
There's a lot to learn, right?
Yes, yes, definitely. It's exciting though. Yeah.
Yeah, it is. It's great to hear that you are really living the advice that you learned when back when you started working at Pinterest about trying to help the company succeed. It really sounds like you
Yeah.
are putting a big focus on right. I'm helping my team, then I'm helping your CEO or CTO, and then you're looking at right, what other teams can I help, and how can I make the startup? Because I guess Circle are still a
Mhm.
startup of sorts. So how can I help the
Yeah,
business?
it's
Right?
your
How can I
startup.
get the
Yeah.
yeah? How can I get the
Yeah.
business firing? Which is great. Could you introduce us to
Mhm.
Circle in a little bit more detail, please?
Yeah, in a nutshell, right? Circle is just digitalized dollars and euros on blockchains, right? For example, our coin for dollars is USDC, and the customer gave us dollars, and we mint the USDC the coins to them, and when they return the coins, and we give back their dollars, we keep it like always one pegged. So if you why it's important, you should stand back and think about the functionalities of money, right? It's just a store of value, a unit for accounts, and the medium of exchange, right? And the circle, in fact, is trying to help the last part, medium of exchange. We help money move at the internet speed, right? And with USDC, you are paid instantly with very, very low fee, and also it doesn't matter where you are located, right? You are located in US, Germany, everywhere. As far as they can access blockchain, which is internet, we were big represents that. This definitely that's why it's so popular in the DeFi worlds. That's our short term. Long term is we definitely want to become a fully digital bank. There's a lot of imagination space, and we are not there yet. We are focused on the first one first. Yeah.
That's great. And why did you choose
Mhm.
to join Circle?
Yeah, that's a really good question, right? So, first of all, is I've been always passionate about the blockchain. When the first time I learned about blockchain, I must say, wow, this is a really revolutionary, nice uh, technology. The reason is, you think of blockchain is purely just to say we build a decentralized, unupdatable storage, right? It's a solve a very fundamental problem, trust. Means like I don't need to trust other people or company. I trust the technology. If I put something there, it don't change. Nobody can change it, right? And so it's sounds simple, but it really solve a fundamental problem. Of course, it has a lot of challenges, scalability, and how to put it in use. I have been watching for a while, and when Circle came into the picture, is that I say, okay, this is a business I really understand because they are not doing things, frankly, fancy. They're doing some things digitalized dollar on blockchain, right? And it can solve really the use case in the real world and easy for people to onboard and understand. Not all the Web3 projects is that way. Something I don't feel that comfortable, right? But I definitely work something I think I understand. This is one side. Another side is like just the people, right? If you look at our CEO and CTO, right? See our Jeremy, he has founded multiple startups, have a track record, right? Our CTO, she worked for like Google, worked for Pinterest. While I have very little overlap with her and Pinterest, but I have a lot of friends worked for her, and I have also a couple friends work in the Circle. So that one make him feel more comfortable. Since I think my experience and the Pinterest definitely helped me. The reason is like all the startups, they will struggle at a certain point. There will be ups and downs, and I think same thing will happen to Circle if happened already, and then we come back, and I think there will be challenges on the way. So that's important to say you work with the right people. Projects can fail, but the people will just get stronger, especially great leaders, right? I think this is another aspect. That's why I joined Circle.
That's brilliant. And just going back to something you said at the start there about learning blockchain and
Mm.
coming across blockchain, how did you start to learn about blockchain in the first place? Is there a certain place you went, or is there a certain course you did, or anything like that?
Hmm. Yeah, like I said, I like to read books, right? I make sure I read at least half an hour. If I can read a book, just talk about the whole blockchain, Satoshi, how they came up with BTC, or those kind of things. That's why I forgot the name of the book, but he just talked about the blockchain technology itself and the whole history, why it's invented, how it works, and those things. Just like I said, it's if you forget about all the details, in fact, it's a very simple thing, right? It's decentralized on updatable storage. If you put that way, you will say, oh, it's really something can solve a very hard and fundamental problem. That's why I think there's if they can really figure out a way to leverage it and use it, right? And it can really change a lot of things. Yeah, this is how I learned about it. Well, of course, after later when I joined the Circle, I definitely learned a little bit more. I watch a lot of videos, take courses. Our companies also play trainings, and we get our hands dirty and write our own smart contract or
Okay.
those kind of things, and start learn a little bit more. Yeah.
Are there any other skills that you've learned along the way that have really helped you up to this point, whether that be more on the softer side or more on the technical side of things?
Mhm. Yeah, I think the technical side is always we need to keep learning because the things changing every day, right? And so neither we need to get us updated, right? Like for example, recently a lot of development have happen for the account abstraction, how to help the user experience, right? Those things, I don't need to be able to write code for it anymore, but I need to know how it
Yeah.
works under the hood. But I think at the end, right, no matter whether you're an engineer or you want to go to the software management track, like soft skills becomes more and more important. There's a will be overlap for that answer between senior engineers and the managers, right? For me, I think the most important mindset or skills is really just the growth mindset. I think it's super important. There are a couple reasons. One is when you have a just for myself, right? I know I could be wrong. In fact, I've been wrong quite often. So I make sure I really listen to other people, right? Listen. So if I learn something, I will acknowledge it. Say, yeah, I think I got it wrong, and you're right. And also that me help me to really catch my issues quicker, right, and be able to fix it. And personally, I can grow. Second thing is, like I say, with the growth mindset, I feel confident. I can learn new things, right? I can stamp in a new position. I trust myself can do a good job. So that's also part of the growth mindset. So I mean, I trust myself, I can grow, and also I can learn. Third thing is especially as a leader, right? And one of the major responsibility is grow other people. So with a growth mindset, we will show okay, those engineers they will become senior, can have a chance to become senior engineers. They can become a leader later. Maybe they not demonstrate those skills at this moment, but they can grow if we set the path and the environment right for them. I think on top of my mind, right, growth mindset is super important. Other than that, it's definitely like the I think being able to adapt it is super important too, right? Like the projects, companies we work with, everyone is different, right? Some will be easier to work with, some will be harder, and also it depends on your own personality. You will find some situations it's easy for you to get blending and land and sprint. Something will take you longer, right? As a leader, it's especially important to be adaptive. Make sure not you change the environment, you change other people, change yourself, how you behave to work with all kinds of different people. Third thing I think is definitely communication. As a leader, it's super important. Communication with your team, your peer, communicate with your manager, right? You have to come in the middle, get everybody connected. Everything can be over communicated. I say something is people will say no, it's not. Sometimes when I talk to people, they will say we get it. You don't need to receive it. But I say no, you know about it, but other people don't. So I need to say it again, right? Make sure the message really get across out. Yeah,
That's really good advice.
that's all.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
really good advice, especially with the growth mindset. I think that's really important. Is there anywhere that
yeah.
you went to
Mm-hmm.
learn to have a growth mindset, or is it something that you just developed over time, or is there a person that pulled you to one side and said, "Look, Dan, this thing is holding you back. You need to develop this."
Um, So I think there's nobody coming to me and say, hey, you need to learn growth mindset. That's what sounds pretty bad already. No, it doesn't work that way. It's just I think from two aspects. One is definitely from work, right? Sometimes the other one is just from like read books and learn from other people. So I think the reason I start to learn, I read a book specifically for growth mindset, and the reason I forgot the name. But it's really good book. I can give you a name later.
Thanks.
So the reason I start reading that the book is because in my team I found a person, he's a really strong engineer and he definitely missing the software skill. I was struggling. I coached him a little bit, right? But I didn't see too much progress there. And then I say, okay, should I just keep him an engineer? I'm super happy with that result, right? And or should I do something? And then time I was trying to figure out. By chance, like I said, I like to read all kinds of books, right? And then I found that book. I read through it. It's really helped me to have a deep understanding of growth mindset. I think everybody probably have a growth mindset. It's just a huge spectrum, right? Somebody say you have not too much growth. Somebody you thinking everything can grow, right? And in fact, I don't think we should end the each extreme. We should end the middle. Just your time and resource is limited, right? You cannot spend all the energy grow one people instead others, right? Because you have have multiple people to responsible for their career path. So that's when definitely I read the book and then I really put into the use and practice. I think that's important. I think one thing also helped me is I have two boys now, and one is 11, and the other is like 8. I sometimes
Okay.
can get frustrated, say you can learn it or not, but with the growth mindset, right, it really helps me because when they have a trouble learning something, I will stand back, think about to say, okay, should we try a different approach? Because and also interesting thing compared with your employee and your kids, right? Your employees, they are adults. You give them opportunities, they coach it. I think you already did your part. But for your kids, you cannot give up. Say, okay, you can learn. It's fine. Let's give up there, right? You cannot. So you force you to really think about, right? And by grow the kids, and you think about, okay, and the company can do similar things, and also good to really watch other leaders how they grow their team. I think that one I benefit quite a bit too.
That's great. And if you could go back and learn something sooner in your career,
Mhm.
is there anything
Yeah.
that stands out?
Yeah, definitely. I have been thinking about this one for a really long time. I think one thing I really want to do better is just be more persistent. And I can give you two examples of what I do. What do I mean, right? So I worked for Amazon for 4 or 5 years, and then I left. Looking back, I think I should stay there for another 4 or 5 years. There's a lot great technologies there. I think
Okay.
I could benefit. I feel I left too early because I was struggling with something, right? And the same thing happened. And the Pinterest is, I it was super fun to work there in the beginning, and I was offered a great career path because I'm an earning employee, right? That's an advantage I had. But I think I didn't make a good
Yeah.
use of it, right? But just those are I left those two positions, I think, too early for different reasons. But under a hood, right? I think the pattern is there's challenging, it's tough time, and then I decide to find the one I think could be better, right? I think if I could do it again, I would definitely more be more persistent there, just to really keep the final results in my mind, focus on it, and deal with tough situations. That's definitely something I would like. If I had chance, I would like to do better.
That's really interesting.
Mm.
And if someone is stepping into a leadership role for the first time, then is
Mhm.
there any advice that you can share with that person other than maybe having a growth mindset, being persistent, and understanding how
Yeah,
the people in your team learn? Is there any
yeah.
other advice that you can give them?
Yeah, I think there's two pieces of advice, right? One is definitely be mentally ready. Switching from IC to a management role can be very, very challenging. I say, even myself, I step in the management role, I switch back, and then I switch to management role. Fortunately, I stay there now. The same thing happened to my friends too, right? So I have to be mentally ready. See, this is the tough change and be ready for it. And definitely talk to people who has done it recently and learn from them what's the pros and the cons. Another thing I would suggest is today the engineer managers is expect to be like the technical lead, also the team owner. Right? That means if you're first time manager, I would suggest you do the transition and in the same team, right? Because that will give you some leverage. You don't need to ramp up for your technical side. Hopefully, you are already the most senior engineer in that team and know things inside and out. Only thing you need to do is just do learn how to do people management, communication skills, those kind of things. So the gap will be smaller, the chance to succeed will be higher. I did have a couple of like successful cases like that in my team, right? I grow the engineers into a technical lead, and they will do project management, and they will do. I loop them in for people management from time to time, have those kind of conversation, get their advice, right? They can also take a peek to say whether this is what they want. And later, if they really engineer manager is what they want to do, I'm supportive, and where I carve out a small team for them so they have an easy start. And also, if they do great, and we can expand the team. And if they think no, this is not what they want, because looking and how other people do it is very different from yourself to do it. So people can feel very different. So if they decide no, this is not what we want to do, and they can stay and so technique need, and then I will help other part. I think I had a couple of like successful case like that. I would definitely suggest the people who want to make the transition in the familiar environment or eat better in the same team.
That's really good advice because I speak to a lot of people who are individual contributors. They may be a really senior engineer within a business.
Hmm.
And then I guess they think that the next step must just be engineering management. And then they go into an engineering manager role. They work in that role for 6, 8, 9 months, whatever it might be, really not enjoy it because
Yeah.
it takes them away
Mhm.
from doing what they've done all their lives, which is coding and building cool stuff. And then they then
Yeah.
leave that role and then join another business as a senior engineer, principal, lead engineer, whatever it might be.
Yeah.
How do you how do you change your mindset from being an individual contributor to becoming an engineering manager? Because I was having an interesting
Mhm.
conversation a couple of weeks ago where someone said you have to view it as a completely different career path. And if you change your mindset around a different career path and change your mindset towards it that way, then you're kind of open to learning all new things and kind of following down that route. So it'd be really interesting to understand your take on that, to be honest.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I think for really, first of all, for really strong like a senior engineer, and there quite a bit of overlap between them and the engineer manager. The difference is like, for example, for a senior engineer, it's nice to have for them to be able to communicate well, for them to be able to lead a team to do something, and as a manager it's a must have. You can say I'm doing really okay with that, that's on the work you have really access. But for senior engineer, right, who can do it, in fact, even if they want to stay under the IC track, they can progress way faster than people who cannot, right? So there quite a bit of overlap. I think mindset one is there's a big mindset shift for me is as an IC, you're more like self-centered. You're more worried about your project, right? Your career path. And the manager, you cannot. And manager, there's no myself anymore. I'm more think about like the team, right? How can I help the team grow, and how I can help the team deliver projects, and how I can help other people grow, progress their career path. I I don't think about my own career path that much anymore, or my uh, performance. I'm more worried about other people's. This is definitely a mindset issue from yourself to another scope. Another thing is also the way you execute it will be different. The reason is, and I see, and they, it's your job to deliver, right? You get the things done. Well, you can work a group of engineers to achieve it. It's totally fine. And the manager now you want to think about is enabling, because like you said, you cannot go ahead do it, you better not for most cases, right? If there's things on fire, you still need to roll up your sleeves to get things done. I still do it from time to time, but that's not a normal case anymore. uh, Typically you should just think about how to enable other people, right? You think, like I said, I will try to focus on to say what's the existing gap, what's the opportunities for us to do something to make other team move faster, more efficient, build more robust services. So more think about the enabling, get the half parts of the ambiguity sorted out, get things started, and then hand over to your tech lead or senior engineers, take over from there, do the design, do the implementation. Frankly speaking, I think that's a interesting part. Sorting things out is really the one boring one. I think is also very challenging. But I think as a manager, you have to have that mindset. Say, hey, this is tough stuff. Okay, let me do it, and I get it, the path clear out, get the barrier moved, and then other people can take over from there.
So, how did you get on with giving up the ownership of certain tasks to be able to hand them over? Was that an easy transition for you? Was that a little bit tricky, nerve wracking at times, probably, to hand over ownership?
So yeah, I think like I said, I did the transition twice, right? I definitely failed for the first one. I think for the second one, it's a way better experience, which happened in the Pinterest. This is the same thing. I started as a like an engineer, and then I grew into a technical lead, and then time I already managed the uh, projects, manage the team. So later I step into the management role. It's just make some functionality more official part of my job instead of optional, right? I think if you have a really good manager, what they usually do is they will try. One is they will think about your career path. Two, they will give you some task which requires a little bit of stretch, but not stretch that much, right? Then they will closely observe to say, okay, is this too much for you, or you need more stretch, right? And then, for example, like even for me, when I manage a project, we give senior engineers to lead a sub team work on something important. I will observe. Right? I will observe to say, okay, I will start with coaching, like say, hey, you need to do this, you need to do that. I will say whether they really do it, can are they good at it, or they are even interested in doing that, right? And if they're doing great, I will stand back more and tell them, say what I hope they can do. For example, for critical project, I told them it's the best case is you provide me timely updates, and also if you block, you let me know. Other than that, you just run everything. That's the ideal case, right? Every time when I step in, I try to do it. It's just one of task on my plate, but you are losing opportunity to solve the hard problem. So I will definitely consistently observe to say whether okay I can give them more responsibility or I need to step in to help. So this is that, and it's the way I'm doing. It's dynamic.
Yeah, that's great. And are there any really big challenges or any mistakes that you made that stand out to you that you can talk through to help others navigate those challenges or maybe help avoid some of those mistakes?
I think there's probably two different things, right? One is the challenging and the mistake. Challenging is definitely I can from time other couple, right? And the manager and the biggest difference I think I see is you we have to more responsibility, and also we have to make the decision. For IC, while they more focus on execution, they may make some technical decisions. If they have trouble, they can always go back to their manager, ask for help, right? But as an engineer manager, no matter what your level is, you are supposed to make decisions and handle. You cannot always go back to your manager. So, what do you think we should do? Right? You shouldn't. There's cases you have to ask for help, but in most cases you have to handle by yourself. So that means I think as a manager, you have to really think about okay, this thing is blocked. How I unblock them, right? You have to make the decision. And sometimes people will come for you for help. You cannot help everybody, right? And then some people were happy, some people will be frustrated. It's just normal, right? You cannot make everybody happy. That's the reality. You only have limited resource, so that means like you, as a manager, you have really carefully evaluate what's the resource you have, what the ask is, what's the top priority, which one you should focus on. And for the things you cannot do, you have to let people know and why you cannot do it, and also propose some options for them can choose from. Uh, doesn't mean you will solve everybody's problem by doing that, but you probably can solve most of it. Another thing I think also very challenging is, and I see in fact you have more flexibility to choose to say what you want to work on, right? You can tell your manager, say, this is a project I want to work on, or this is the people I want to work with, or this is people I don't want to work with. But as a manager, you cannot. You can, when your boss gave you a task, you cannot say no, I don't want to do it, or you cannot say this is another manager I cannot get along. I don't want to work with him. No, you don't have that flexibility, right? You really have to figure out okay, if something uh, not what you like, you have to learn how to deal with it, and then you have to deliver. I think those definitely challenges we are facing every day. I think mistakes, I would really just go back to the one I think I left those Pinterest and Amazon to earning. I think that's a big mistake. Other than that, for smaller ones, I won't mind it that much. Right, we make mistakes on the way consistently. For example, we can make a wrong decision, but the only thing, the result from my perspective is not that important. Is really the way you do it, right? Because if you use a consistent way to do things, most time you will get it right. There's some time you will get it wrong. It's totally fine. You just need to learn from it. So then those mistakes I don't worry about too much. And this is one thing is also I learned recently is just don't worry about the failure and the mistake and what other people think about you too much. Right? You know you will make mistake, and you know like especially as a manager, there were people may be not happy with you. That's just the word, the fact, right? Really focus on what you can get done. That's important.
Yeah, you're right. And I think if you talk to successful people, whether that be entrepreneurs or whether that be people who've done really well in their career and reached, really, really kind of senior and important positions, you speak to those people and they'll have
Mhm.
failed and made way more mistakes than someone who has never tried at something and maybe not achieved the positions that they're in. So I think that whole
Mhm.
not being afraid of failure and just going with it. If you make a mistake, you make a mistake, and you learn from it. As long as you do learn from it, and you don't make the same one next time, then it's great. It's a good thing.
Yeah.
Do you
Yes.
have any advice for your younger self?
Yeah, I think it's definitely is. I was think to find something interesting doing. Fortunately, I have been doing most of the things I really want to do. I think definitely do it a little bit more. Another thing is be more persistent. I want to really emphasize it because all the good things is come from hard work for really long time. We need both. I think people. If I look back, I work really hard. I'm always willing to do it, right? It's just say because like every day we only have so much time, and you can spend your time doing other things, but you have less time to do the other things. If you can work 1 or 2 hours more than other people, it accumulates, right? So I have no problem with the working hard parts. And also, I feel like if you work on something interesting, working hard won't make you tired and get you more excited. You want to do it more. The hard part is how can you be persistent, right? And you can have a really high energy for a short period. How to keep your energy up for longer? I think persistent is the one I definitely want to do more and could do. I want to do better. Is because for all the great things, it really come out from a lot of effort during long periods, right? And you just I read a book called "The Hard Thing About Hard Things," something like that. Close to the title is like this talk about how they founded the startups, right? I think one quote remember there is just say you just have to be there long enough to start to see the success. You cannot quit. If you quit in the middle, you get nothing, right? There's things will be happen, and there will be you will have like a good time, and for sure you will have a hard time. Frank speaking, you will have more hard time than the happy time. So how to dealing with the hard time really requires you have a character. Really requires you to be consistent, laser focused on the final results. You maybe have a hard time with the project, hard time with the customer, or hard time with the people you work with. That's even harder to deal with, right? But you have to be persistent, always there, saying no. Those are just noise. I will get through it. I will figure out how to get through it, and I will grow. I think I treat those like opportunities.
And what part does finding the right people in your career have a part to play in success?
You mean find the right people to follow with, or find the right people to work for the team?
I guess the right people for you to learn from. By the sound of things, you've worked with
Hmm.
some really good people, and I'm guessing a lot of the approach that you take to management is maybe something that you've learned from previous managers potentially. Is
Hmm.
there?
Yeah.
I'd be really interested to hear your opinion on how finding the right people to work with or to learn from, or finding the right mentors, whatever that might be. What part does that play in your success?
Yes. First of all, I think there's a lot of great leaders out there, but the one is super busy. Two is even if you haven't worked with them, means like you haven't built a bond with them, it's very difficult to get useful advice or learning anything really meaningful from them. Not say they don't want to help you, they just don't know you and don't know the context.
Yeah.
So the thing I'm learning is I think two aspects. One is I definitely keep touch with the managers I worked before. Right, we still grab a coffee, cup of coffee from time to time. I will share my challenge with them, and then I will get their advice. Meanwhile, I will ask them, say, hey, how they are doing, what they are struggling with, right? And they will share with you their experience. In fact, it's also learning something. I probably won't be able to give them advice, and definitely I will understand everybody has their own challenge, no matter what your level is. And I would like to hear say, okay, how they deal with their challenge, right? Maybe certain time I have to deal with a similar thing too. This is one thing. The other thing is that I feel really lucky. Is there's a lot of great leaders like around me, and so I will definitely observe. I will observe to say how they like say handle the communication, how do they navigate a tough situation, right? I will put myself in their shoes. Say, if it were me, how should I do? And sometimes when I think they said something, did something better than me, I will say, okay, if the same thing happened to me, I should do something they are doing. Right? I think you just have to learn on the way. And one suggestion is definitely say, if you have worked a great leader, try to follow them around. And one, sometimes it's very difficult because people have different interests, right? And also, like they have different agenda for their career paths. But if possible, follow them around.
And are there any leaders that you have either worked with previously or leaders that you know that have made the move across into Web3 and blockchain as well?
I think our current CTO, right? She worked for Google for a really long time, and then later she became the CTO of Pinterest, and also she became the CTO of Line, the scooter company,
Yeah, yeah.
and then he joined the Circle. I think she is one of the example. Switch from the Web 2 to Web 3. I chatted with her before I joined the Circle, right? That's why I feel more confident.
Mm.
That's why this is because I. So the thing is, when you talk to a leader, you cannot say, "Okay, I know nothing. You tell me." That's definitely not a good approach to do, right? It's not the
Yeah.
best way to use your time. And so better saying is like you have done quite a bit of study already. You know something, but there's something. Uh, one, you want to hear from their side, right? What's their opinion? Two is maybe something you miss something, and you can get it clarified with them by working like that. One, they will provide information for you, will be useful. Then you say, hey, I don't know anything, just educate me,
Yeah.
right? That one won't work.
So you've touched on why you took an interest in Web3 and the blockchain at the start of our conversation.
Mhm.
But what is it that you really like about the space? What's kept you working at Circle? What's kept you working in Web3?
Yeah, I think this one will come back to the blockchain, the technology, right? I'm an engineer, so I'm passionate about the new technologies, how to make people's life easy, right? And solve some tough problems. If you look at our financial domain, it has been there, I don't know how long, it's always been like that, right? And especially in the like the US or the Western world, we have been using credit cards for a really long time. I came to US back to 2000. I got my really first credit card there, Capital One. Since then, I haven't seen the user experience improve too much. Right, it's already like 20 years
Yeah.
past. So that means this domain has been like that one really long time. Well, I think there's a couple of things why it's hasn't been like that. One, it works pretty well. So it's we have to give them the credit. Right, they works really well. Two is probably we haven't make any really meaningful technology breakthrough. I think for the blockchain, it can be a technology breakthrough, and then with that one, we can. There's a although the thing is we use credit card and it works for a lot of cases, especially in US. But if now this is you have a global economy, let's say you are like Amazon, you need to pay your suppliers, right? Uh, if they are in US, I guess it's pretty simple. But Amazon is the wrong case because Amazon has everything set up. Just say you become a merchant, right? You started, and you need to pay your suppliers. If they are in US, probably it's easy to do, right? And if they are in Mexico or Germany, it becomes harder to do.
Yeah.
Right? You have to deal with the high cost, the delay. You have to sort it out. So I think the blockchain itself, those things, if we can use it, there's no boundary anymore, right? And then it makes things so easy. The new technology is really work as enabling, right? It removes the friction, makes something possible which is not possible before, right? You have to worry about a lot of stuff, and now you don't need to worry about it anymore. You just leverage it. You focus on what you can, your business. Do compared with like say AWS cloud, right? Before is if you want to start up, you have your own hardware, you have set up everything. It's really takes quite a while for you to get done, and it's also expensive, right? Now Amazon has the cloud computing. You can start your company in 10 minutes now, right? Compared before probably a couple of weeks. And also you reduce your cost. Those things is removes the friction and makes enabling other people to really focus on what they're good at. I think that's blockchains like this.
Yeah, that's cool. So that's what you like about Web3.
Mhm.
What would you change about the space?
Yeah, I think the change is. I think there's two things, right? One is something I cannot change. I think the most important thing we are struggling with today is legislation, right? There's no clear
Okay.
rule defined. Everybody is struggling. That in fact is really bad. The reason is like it's us, right? We want to comply with all the rules, no matter how strict it is. We want to do it, but there's no rules we can comply with. Other side,
Mhm.
other players maybe say, okay, since there's no rules, I just do whatever I want, right? It's also bad. So, and also we are in the monetary domain, right? It's not like a Pinterest. You go there, you give them your email address, you sign up an account, and you start to use. What's worse that will happen, and you don't like it, you stop using it. But we are in this domain is we take people's money. The first thing we need to do is build a trust with them. I don't think there's anything better than legislation can help to build the trust because they will know the government stamp in and the companies work with comply with the rules and there's consequences if they don't do it right, and then this one will help normal people to feel confident and they can use it. By the way, for a typical person, when they use something, they don't care about its blockchain, they don't care about its web3 web2. It's not, they shouldn't, right? They shouldn't even understand
Yeah.
what happened behind. They just need to know this provided me good experience and I feel comfortable to use it, right? So I think legislation is important. The other side is definitely the usability. I think there's still quite a bit of gaps for the blockchain, the Web3 become. So today, for example, you have like the long phrase to get back your key, or you lose your private key, you lose your money, and those kind. One, you can, we are engineers. I understand why it works that way. But as I said, for a typical user, you cannot. They cannot say, "Oh, I lose my private key. Now I lose my money." They just forget about it. I will just go to the bank, right? So we have to figure out. It's fine to use advanced technology to build things behind the scene, but we have to offer way better user experience. We have to make sure we remove all the frictions for them. They just easy to use. They feel comfortable to use. I think those two things I would like to say there's some progress made.
That's an interesting point that you raised because I guess people use blockchain and obviously have the seed phrases because then it makes everything really secure.
Yeah.
How do you? And you might not. You may not have an answer to this question. It may be quite a difficult question to answer. But how do you still simplify that without losing the security elements that make
Hmm.
part of blockchain what it is. How do you do that?
Yeah, first of all, it's a tough problem. That's why I guess most people know about it. It's a dilemma, just like you described, right? Why it's secure? Because we use the encryption private public key to get your stuff out.
Yeah.
You need private key, and how can we make that partly secure, right? So I think that's a tough problem. I see there's definitely some improvement already for Ethereum, right? I forgot the ERC number, but it's called the account abstraction. They already start to
Mhm.
make some progress. I think two major features from there's one is like you can use social recovery to recover your private key. Another thing is for some transactions happen in the smart contracts, they don't require your private key to pay it. They can use other. I forgot exactly how it works. They can use a smart contract to do it. So instead, every time you private your key make a transaction happens, you already operate. We use other thing. They can make it happen uh, automatically. I think it's just a step. It's good to say we start already make some progress in that direction. There's more need to come back for that one. Come to make progress. Become like this one is really usable for anybody, right?
Yeah, for sure. Again, this might be a really tough question to answer. If you were given an unlimited pot of money or unlimited time, unlimited resources, whatever it
Mhm.
might be, is there a challenge or is there a problem in Web3 or with blockchain that you'd love to be able to solve or love to have a go at solving or creating?
Yeah, I think probably it's definitely the yeah. If with unlimited money, unlimited time, there's a huge gap we need to solve, right? It's just too many gaps. Let me put it that way. That's why I think it's a hard problem to discuss, right? For example, like today, um, I probably cannot talk about other people's use case, right? I just talk about our use case. So today is the reason why our coin is so popular in the DeFi domain. The reason is like well, in the Web3, you make some trade, you do something. You can use BTC, you can use Ethereum. It's fine. But the problem is when you want to buy or sell anything, you want to make sure you always get the value bank you want, right? But when you use BTC or Ethereum or other coins, their price fluctuates. That's the worst thing
Mhm.
merchants or consumers they want to see, right? If you sell something, you need to get the $10 back. You literally want to get $10 back. You cannot say this time I get 15, next time I get five, because you cannot plan. You will be bankrupt very soon, right? So that's why people use USDC as an anchor point. This is so popular in the DeFi, right? But there's a lot of infrastructure are missing today. It's just getting worse. Is to say, and then they how we connect this cryptocurrency back to the traditional money system. We used to have like the Silvergate or those kind of things support us, but we lost them, right? Just for the recent events. So I think
Mhm.
the first thing I want to really do is how to rebuild those bridges, and that's definitely take money and the time to how to because you think about today, right? And for the crypto domain compared with the traditional domain, like I don't know, like a crypto domain probably is like 1% or very single digit number of percentage compared to that one. And then they, if we want this, make this one to a mainstream and also benefit like say billions of people instead of millions of people, we have to stamp in the mainstream. We have to make it super useful there, right? That means we have to connect to the traditional money system. Traditional money system won't go away; it will be there a long time. But how we can build a bridge between blockchain, cryptocurrency with them has make all the transition smooth, and also important have a very robust bridge there, right? That's definitely one problem I would like to solve. Um, there's other things like the usability. is definitely something. But I think from my perspective, I think I would say that's the biggest gap today we should address.
And I guess a lot of the gap between
Mm-hmm.
traditional banking and the crypto space is the legislation, right? If there was legislation around crypto, then traditional banks would probably be way more open
Mm-hmm.
to accepting
Mm-hmm.
more crypto payments or whatever that crypto deposits, whatever that might be.
Yeah, yeah. You are right. I think legislation is definitely one because like before, there's some companies already support it. Now the traditional bank, just a poor bank, they used to willing to work with cryptocurrency. They don't
Mm.
anymore, right? So that's a hard problem. One is legislation need to get through. Another thing is infrastructure. I think even if we have legislation there still need to be the reliable infrastructure to make it happen. Especially if you think about there's so many traditional banks. What do you need to do, right? And how do you can support them easily? You don't want to make sure, for example, today you don't want to show, okay, if you want USDC, there's a couple banks you have to go to open your account, right? That's on the work, customer only do it, right? You have to say, no matter which is your home bank, we will support it, right? That will be a way better approach.
Yeah, for sure. It's going to be interesting space over the next 5-10 years to see how all this works itself out and see
Yeah.
what happens when the dust settles, I suppose.
Yeah.
So, Dan, to wrap up then,
Hmm.
what advice would you give to people looking to follow in your footsteps?
Yeah, definitely. I think one is definitely find the thing if you're passionate to work for, because like in your career path, like I said, there will be ups and downs. There will be more ups, more downs than ups. You will have a difficult time. If you're passionate about something, it helps. It helps you to survive during those tough times. Another thing is definitely be more persistent, right? Even you're passionate, like I said, I for myself, I passionate something, I can put on a lot of energy work to get it through. But sometimes I deal with frustration. I have a hard time, right? So be mindful about that one. You need to do it. You need um, so I do a comparison is like back to the movie called the Lion King, right? I think when Simba asked his father, say, "Okay, I think you are brave." Uh, Mufasa, his father's name, he say, "No, I'm not brave." But Simba say, "You are not scared, but during dangerous situation." The answer is like, "That's the time because you are scared. You need brave. That's the only moment you need brave." Right. Then my point is, like say, persistence helps you when you're really facing challenges, and then time. You say, "Okay, I will just stay here. I will get things done no matter what I need to do, how I'm getting it through, right?" That's the time. Persistence is not something you will say, "Oh, I will spend 5 years in this domain." It's very easy to say it now. It's very difficult when you're really in a tough situation, right? And also, all the great things they have come from hard work in a long time. I really have to emphasize a long time. Or I don't know how now we'll take like the crypto or blockchain become the mainstream. Maybe 5 or 10 years, maybe 1 or 2 years, I don't know. But for me, it really doesn't matter. I know it will become something at a certain time. All I need to do is stay here, keep plowing, keep doing it day after day, right? We will get there.
Dan, that's brilliant advice.
Mhm.
Well, thank you very much for your time today. You shared some brilliant insights, some brilliant advice. It was great to talk to you. And
Nice talk to you.
if people want to reach out to you, if they have any questions about something that you might have spoken about today, appreciate you're a busy man, but is LinkedIn best? Is Twitter best? Is there a spot where people can reach out and drop you a message?
LinkedIn will be the best.
Okay, perfect.
Mm.
Well, yeah, Dan, again, thank you very much. And yeah, I'll
Thank you.
catch up with you soon.
Yeah, bye.
Take care. Bye.